With that, I will pass you over to our presenter today, Dr. Jan Willem van der Wilden, who is our Global Drug Safety Advisor. Jan Willem, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ram. And thank you for your kind introduction. I will not talk about audits and inspections today, but about the Pharmacovigilance System Master File. And I think that the Pharmacovigilance System Master File is something very important for companies that want to enter the European market, because it's a kind of blueprint tells a lot about what is necessary in pharmacovigilance, but it goes far beyond pharmacovigilance, and that's something people have to know. So, Pharmacovigilance System Master File, PSMF, that is the abbreviation. It's a document, or let's say it's a set of documents, and it describes the entire pharmacovigilance system that covers one or more products that are in the European market. If you have one product in the European market, the PSMF should tell the worldwide status of that specific product in the European market. Some people think it can have a paper form. Well, if you have only one product and a very short list, then it's okay. But normally it goes over hundreds and hundreds of pages. So I would suggest that an electronic form is much better. It must be organized so that if you search for quick questions, or the inspectors inspectors are of course very important in Europe. If you like to have it easily accessible, it must be a well-organized thing. It must be kept up to date, and it should reflect all the changes in the system. So if you have, and the changes in the system should go 5 years in the back. So every change. Okay. Can you mute, please? Every change that you have in the system should be visible for about 5 years. In principle, it's an internal document, and you don't need approval for the document itself. But because it's so transparent. You have to fully agree within the company that the Pharmacovigilance System Master File is available to everybody that wants to look at it. Next slide, please, Donald. Okay. In the past, we had a kind of system pharmacovigilance master file that was a bit telling what the summary of the pharmacovigilance system in the company was. In the new DVP module, and this DVP module number 2, you have to give an enormous amount of information. It should give the proof that there's a qualified person. So if you go as an American company to EU compound or EU whatever, then you need an EU QPPV. It should mention the member state in which the qualified person resides, and that is then also immediately the entry to the master file. The contact details of the people, etc., etc. That's all logic. But in principle, you have to realize that if you start with the Pharmacovigilance System Master File, you give the entire company a full layout, and everybody in the European Union is then able to see what you like to what they want. Next slide, please. Okay, this gives a short overview, and we will go into detail in each of the modules. So there must be a location. Where is it? And in principle, where it is that it should be accessible from a European Union state. So if you, for instance, have an headquarters in the United Kingdom or in Holland or in Germany, the system master file should be able that you can connect to it from that country. It doesn't mean it has to be in the country, but it has to be connected to the country. You need all kinds of registrations. The system master file needs to have a so-called QMVPPD number, so it means where the system is. Okay, then what is very important, it needs the details of the EU QPPV. It needs an organogram. It needs the sources of the safety data, the IT systems that they are using, documented processes, all SOPs, performance measurements, which means that you have to indicate how good your system works. Quality management is of course sure, and then all kinds of annexes. Next slide, please. So the location of the pharmacovigilance system master file, it must have a physical address. And I would suggest that the physical address is normally an electronic address, but it should be there, and it should be can be maintained in the cloud architecture or whatever you have in your company. That's not so important, but what is important is a set of documents, and the set of documents is continuously changing, and that's why the changes that you are making to it are always up to date in the pharmacovigilance system master file. It must be in the EU, and it could be in some of the EEA countries. EEA countries are, for instance, Norway, Iceland, but not Switzerland. I'm living in Switzerland, and Switzerland is not part of the EU. I'm still very happy with that. But my pharmacovigilance system master files are accessible from Switzerland. For instance, Roche, Novartis are very big companies. They are in Switzerland. The system master files are in Switzerland, but they can be accessible from other countries. It should be registered in the UDA vigilance system. And in principle, every product that you bring to the market in the EU should be in this PSMF. And how can I say that? If you for instance have one or two products, and one of those is in the European market, the PSMF should contain all the details of that specific product. You also need the QPPV, the qualified person for pharmacovigilance, that is responsible for and the PSMF and for the products. It is possible that a marketing authorization holder can have more PSMFs. For instance, I know a couple of companies that have normal products, and they do have injections, vaccination kind of products, and they switch between the one and the other. They can also have a QPPV, one for the normal products, for the medicinal products, and one for the vaccinated products. That is possible. Next slide, please. Now we go into the contents. What you see here is the complete structure of the PSMF. And you see that on the left side, there's quite a lot of attention to the QPPV, the qualified person for pharmacovigilance. There's some organizational structure, and then on the right side, there are more indications for how to go into detail for specific items. We will go more or less in detail, so can I have the next slide on? Next, please. Okay, the QPPV. The QPPV is in Europe a very important function. I do not know how much that function is understood in the United States, but it's a person that is personally liable for all the pharmacovigilance items that go on in Europe and beyond. So if there's a product that is on the market in Europe and it's also on the market in other countries, the QPPV is responsible for all of that. So he should have enough authority to promote, maintain, and improve compliance. You need a summary of his CV, and it must be included in the EVMPD, so it must be included in the system of the European authorities, so that they can immediately look at it. Contact details, and also contact details about backup. If somebody is not there, if he is on holiday, if he's on a travel, and then, unfortunately, and that's very unfortunately, you also need contact persons at the national level. In many countries in Europe, you need, at this moment, a pharmacovigilance person on a local level that is responsible for the pharmacovigilance activities. Within my knowledge of a long-term pharmacovigilance experience, I find that a regret, but it is like that. So there are many countries that just say, maybe it's job protection, I don't know, but there are many people that say, we want a local pharmacovigilance person, and in order to make it justified, they say they have to speak the local language. As a Dutch person, I speak a lot of local languages, but that's not the case for everybody. So I'm very sorry, but that's how it is. Okay, then in the cover page of the pharmacovigilance master file is also you should have your number, and you can apply for that number the moment you apply for the pharmacovigilance system master file. You should have the names of the marketing authorization holders, the products, and things like that. That is all a bit easier to handle. What is not so easy to handle is that you have to have date and version controls. Every time when you change a little bit to the pharmacovigilance system master file, it must be version controlled. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Here we go to the organizational structure. Actually, the organizational structure says where is your database? What is the functionality? How does it operate? Is it okay? Did you have any audits or inspections that your system is working? What are the data flow charts? So SOPs. SOPs, that's all they want to see. And then, of course, the organizational structure is about the processes, the sites where you do your business, and the integrated system as a whole. Next slide. Next slide. I think Donald did a great job in making this slides working like this, because you always see the entire picture, and then I pick out a number of important points. Yeah, what is important in the pharmacovigilance system master file is also benefit risk monitoring. The benefit risk monitoring is related to signal detection, How do I do my signal detection? How is my signal detection working? And how do I make, in the end, a file that shows that the benefit risk profile of the product is okay? Risk profiles we, in the meantime, all used to make. Benefit profiles we're not so good at. And that's something that we are teaching a lot. But anyway, in the BR, benefit risk monitoring, we should make a clear idea about the decision-making process, how you continuously monitor, and how do you, if you have a result of a monitoring, how do you implement that in your risk management system? And then, it, of course, goes to risk management. It's operation and outcome monitoring. If you have a risk and you think it's a real risk, it should be implemented in your pharmacovigilance master file with your next update. When the risk is gone, you can ignore it. How do you do your case-to-case management? That's SOPs. How do you collect your data? How you assess your data? How you report your data? That's just a matter of SOPs. Then you have the aggregate reporting, of course, the PSORs, the DSORs, and any other risk communication procedure. In risk communication, I don't think I have to go into detail with DSORs and PSORs, but risk communication is something a bit different in Europe. You have to inform the regulatory authorities, and they have to agree with you also when you have found a certain risk or when you doubt a certain risk, that you communicate it in a well way to the regulatory authorities and to the public. So there's a public, there's health care professionals, and there's authorities. Please realize that the language that you use can be a bit different between a public and a healthcare professional and authority. Authority and healthcare professionals can understand a more scientific language, and the public just need very lay language. In the end, the part of the risk management procedure goes into a public file that is accessible for everybody into the EEMA website. Next slide. Next slide. Then, of course, there's quality systems. You have to prove that whatever you have written down is working. So there are quality systems that talk about document and record control, procedural documents, and very important is training. Training about the people that receive the training, that are in your pharmacovigilance department working. But it goes beyond, because a pharmacovigilance system master file gives many information that is not part of the pharmacovigilance department. For instance, quality, the clinical trials department, post-marketing projects, acquisitions, and things like that. That's all part of the PSMF. What I think is the most important of this slide, and I would really attract your attention to it, is that you understand that it goes a bit beyond the normal PV procedures that you were more or less used to so far, and the European authorities really demand that you understand what's going on. Next slide. Next. Next slide. Yep. Okay. Then there are loads of annexes, and of course, like all documents, the annexes are just the how do you call that? It's the snake biting in its tail. QPPV, the list of delegated tasks by the QPPV, the CV, the contacts, and the training. Then all contracts. So every company you deal with, you must have a safety data exchange agreement. And the safety data exchange agreement has to go into the pharmacovigilance system master file. And authorities are very picky on that. The most important findings I had so far with inspections is that these safety data exchange agreements are not in good order or that they're not checked. The sources of the safety data, your affiliates, your partners, studies, programs. Studies and programs, you think it's easy, but it's not easy because the marketing department can have all kinds of marketing, let's say, extension programs or whatever, and you don't know about it. It should be in. It must be in. So it's a complete, the PSMF is a complete blueprint of the entire company. So every marketing effort that the companies are doing, it must be in. Okay, your computerized system, that's okay. That if you have Argus or RSG or Empirica Trace, that should be in, and the contract should be in, and it should be in whether that's validated, yes or no. Processes and written procedures, your system procedures. What is also important is that if you have had an audit, and the audit brings certain kappas, the kappas must be in. And you have to tell in a 5-year period whether the kappas have been solved, yes or no. Next slide, please. Next. Okay, that is another annex. The variation, that's also something that's important. If you want to change your pharmacovigilance system master file, it is part of a so-called type 1A variation. I must tell you that personally I do not understand so much what 1A or 2A or whatever A is, but it's if you change pharmacovigilance master file, it's part of a 1A variation. Next slide. What I said in the beginning, it is possible that you have one product with one master file. You have one QPPV with one master file. Most of the companies have one QPPV. They have one master file for many products. And the only difference is when you have an extremely big company that you make some differences between a master file for like I say, for vaccination products compared to normal medicinal products. That's not so important. The only thing is that you should know that you can have more than one master file. You can have more than one QPPV. One QPPV is responsible for one master file and the other way around. Next slide. Okay, in the European Union, where you have your master file located, or if you say my QPPV is in Germany, then the German authorities are responsible to inspect and look after your master file. Now, if it's in Holland, it's the Dutch authorities, and they are the so-called supervisory authority, and they report any findings to the other authorities. And they share that communication in English, luckily, and with the other countries. Next slide. When do your authorities inspect the master file? They do it, in principle, you have to submit, be able to submit in 7 days. So if a regulatory authority asks for a pharmacovigilance system master file, You must be able to provide it within 7 days. So I always advise my clients and my companies that they are able to print it within 7 days, because sometimes it's so big that they don't even able to do it, or make a CD and put it all on the CD. They can also ask for it at any time, but normally the Pharmacovigilance System Master File is asked for just before an inspection. And inspections in Europe at this moment are about, I would say, every 2, maximum 3 years. It's a snapshot document, so you have to keep it up to date. And that's why it's also in modules, and you can update a module without updating the entire file. Next slide, please. So, in conclusion, the location of the Pharmacovigilance System Master File must be in the EU, at least the access. It's a live document. It should be maintained. It should be strictly version controlled. There are a number of combinations possible between Pharmacovigilance System Master File, QPPV, MEH, etc., but keep it simple. It must be submitted immediately, but that means within 7 days upon request, and much important, it forms the basis for PV inspections and audits. Next slide. Okay, I hand over to you, Donald.
Thank you so much for that, Jan Willem. So I just have a couple of slides on Synowledge and our services. However, I would encourage the forum to put in their questions on the chat box. So when we reach the QA session, we'll be able to go through them. Just a quick background about Synowledge expertise and services. We cover and provide services pretty much to all PV requirements, right from ICSR processing, aggregate reporting, QPPV services, training our clients and setting up training materials for clients for PV, both ICSR processing, aggregate reporting, risk management, and signal detection, and of course help our clients with best practices in terms of audit and inspection readiness. We have 3 main service lines: drug safety, of course, regulatory affairs and clinical, and IT services. In regulatory affairs, we help with global submissions, writing services, ECTD services, labeling services, data management, database programming, and coding. And in terms of IT services, we provide services in application and infrastructure management services for the safety databases and all systems used in drug safety and regulatory affairs. And we also have our custom application development department, where we have already developed a couple of applications being used by our clients to improve and efficiently manage their processes. So I now reach the Q&A session. We have a few questions that have come in and continue to do so. So if we run out of time here, and if questions are submitted after the event, we will definitely respond back to you via email or telephone. So I will take up the first question. This is coming from John. The question is, do inspectors look for a minimum amount of revisions to the PSMF in a given year? For instance, if it has been updated, if it has not been updated in 6 months, is that a warning sign during an audit?
The answer is yes. I think that PSMF should be updated every 6 months, minimum.
Thank you, Jan-Willem. The next question is from Chris. If running a clinical study with an investigational product, however, using a marketed product as a comparator, is a QPPV required for reporting of events related to the comparator, which is already a marketed product?
Yeah, the answer is again yes. It's of course these kind of questions are not so easy. I admire the person who asked the question for asking this question, because it really puts me into a challenge. But the answer is yes. If you have a marketed product that is used as a comparator in a clinical study, you have to report the adverse events of the, but that's not part of the pharmacovigilance master file. The study is part of the pharmacovigilance master file. The reporting is part of the reporting module, that is module 4, I believe. What I always recommend is that you report the data of the comparator products to the EMA, and they report to the marketing authorization holder. Anytime when you start to report to the marketing authorization holder itself, they will say, it's not my product, you manipulated it, you put it in a capsule, so it's not mine, blah, 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 blah. So I wouldn't do that, but you definitely have to report to the regulatory authorities. But it's not part of the pharmacovigilance system master file.
Thank you for that, Jan-Willem. The next question is from Andrew. You mentioned that the PSMF does not have to be approved until it is requested.
Yep.
So at the time of MAA, does the PSMF need to be signed by the marketing authorization holder describing the PV system in place at the time of MAA submission, or does it need to be only signed when requested by an authority?
No. When you bring a product to the European market, you should have a pharmacovigilance system master file, but it does not need to be approved. So you don't have to submit the PSMF together with the marketing authorization. But when the authorities ask, do you have a PSMF, then you should be able to say yes.
Okay, thank you. The next question comes in from Sunil. Sunil asks, do partner CAPAs also need to be tracked within the PSMF?
The answer is yes. Very shortly, yes.
Okay. The next question comes in from Susan. How do you handle when PSMF contributors do not respond to requests for updates?
Okay, you use all your business possibilities to let them respond, because it will not be tolerated by regulatory authorities that the other people are not responding and you didn't do your best. So in the worst case, you stop marketing with the other company. Of course, that is business-wise horror, but it's one of the only possibilities to do it. The regulatory authorities in Europe will not accept that a business partner is not responding. They will say to you, you didn't do your job right.
Thank you, Jan. Again, on the question of updating of the PSMF, there is a question from Ray. Ray asks, if there are no changes to the PSMF within a 6-month period, will it be satisfactory to the inspector that the document was reviewed and this has been documented?
The answer is yes, no problem.
Okay, thank you. The next question comes from Jacob. He asks, what are the must-have SOPs to have in place?
Okay. I would advise go to the DVP modules and see what is necessary. You need to have an SOP on adverse reaction management, about your PSMF, about risk and signal detection, risk communication. Actually, you need an SOP on all of the 15 modules that are currently in the European Union So if you go to the modules that are in the European Union, then you know how many SOPs you need. I wouldn't go beyond 15, but it's about 15 that is the least. So it's the quality systems, I can look it up, of course, very quickly, but that takes more time. It's the quality system, it's the PSMF, it's the ICSR handling, literature searching, risk management, risk communication. Yeah, but about that.
Thank you, Jan. We are running a little over time, but I can squeeze in a couple of questions more. The next question comes in from Raquel. If a product is authorized in the EU and US by different marketing authorization holders, and the responsibilities with regard to this product are shared between them, how can we manage the PSMF?
The answer is that you have to have full control over the US partner, and all the data that are with the US partner should be also with the European partner. So there's no way that you can at a certain moment say that I'm sorry, we don't know what the US partner is doing, etc. So it's a full both companies should know what the other company is doing. Actually, for the FDA it's the same, because the FDA also wants to know what the European partner is doing.
Thank you. I'll move on to the last question. This comes in from Yankee. Will the EEMA inspectors assess the PSMF during routine GMP inspections?
Routine GMP inspections? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think when they are coming for a routine GMP inspection, they will not ask for the pharmacovigilance system master file. That's my feeling. They can ask if it's well organized and if you have it in order, if you have a PSMF, but they will not routinely look at it. That's my feeling.
Thank you, Jan-Willem. So with that, we come to the end of the Q&A session. There are some more questions that have come in. We definitely will respond to all these questions over the next couple of days. So thank you everyone for registering for this event, and I hope you found it useful. We will distribute a recording of the presentation over the next few days. On the 30th of June, we will be hosting a webinar in the QPPV series, and the topic would be the roles and responsibilities. We will share details on this over the next few days. And also, if you or one of your colleagues plan to attend the DIA conference in Washington, D.C. next month, please do drop by the Synowledge stand. It's 1540. It's 1540 in the exhibition area. We definitely will be happy to meet you in person and clear any doubts that you might have. And if you have any further questions on today's topic, or would like to have a one-on-one conversation with Dr. Jan-Willem or any of the Synowledge experts, feel free to contact our local offices. There are numbers on the screen at the moment and also available at our website, www.synowledge.com, or you could email us at info@synowledge.com. Thank you once again for attending. Bye for now and have a good day, everyone.